A chimpanzee will hold out a hand to comfort a grieving friend. It will share food, forge alliances, wage wars, and even laugh when it's surprised. We share 98% of our DNA with chimpanzees. Genetically, we are almost identical, and yet we tell ourselves we are civilized, superior, and removed from the wild. But are we? Like chimpanzees, we form tight-knit communities, driven by love, power, and survival. We play, we grieve, we teach our young. We communicate not just with words, but with gestures and expressions embedded deep in our biology. If we strip away the concrete buildings, the screens, and the rules that we've built, what mutually remains is our instinct and our connection to nature. Many of us live in a society that sees the world as a place to conquer, when really, it's a place we need to understand and protect. Because in reality, the animals, forests, insects, and all that exist in the great outdoors is not beneath us, it is part of us. And it was one determined woman's mission to prove it. This is Watch Her Cook.
Hello, everyone. I'm Cassie.
And I'm Danielle.
Welcome back to Watch Her Cook, a podcast dedicated to sharing the incredible lives of women who have taken their power back throughout history. Everything you just said for the opener sounds like this might be a Jane Goodall episode, but surprise, it is not a Jane Goodall episode. But I would say that Simona Kossak, who we're talking about today, deserves the amount of attention that she's gotten, and we're really excited to talk about her.
Yeah, and we were inspired to do Simona's story from, of all things, a viral Facebook post. And hopefully, as we describe her and get into her story, you'll know exactly the photo that we're speaking about. So, like Cassie just alluded to, today we are exploring the incredible story of Simona Kossak, an inspiring figure in environmental activism and ecology. She was a scientist, biologist, professor of forest sciences, ecologist, and a writer. Often called an animal psychologist, she had a rare ability to understand and form deep connections with wild animals. She spent over 30 years living in the Białowieża Forest, where she dedicated much of her life to advocating for the protection of the forest, which is Europe's oldest.
Before we dive deeper into her story, let's learn a little bit more about who Simona was. Simona was born in May of 1943 in Kraków, Poland during World War II. Her father, Jerzy Kossak, was a famous painter and part of a family of artists known for capturing Polish landscapes and history. Her mother was his former mistress. Despite the family's artistic background, Simona didn't feel a deep connection to her father or his world of painting and high society. Rather than picking up the easel, Simona was far more interested in observing animals, studying ecosystems, and immersing herself in nature. It was recorded that her father longed for Simona to be a boy in order to, quote, carry on the Kossak family name and legacy, and was disappointed when she was born a girl. Therefore, her added divergence from the family's path was in some ways a source of tension.
This was also due to the fact that her childhood was during a time of immense political and social upheaval. Poland was devastated by the war. After it ended, the country went under Soviet influence, forcing Poland to adopt a communist government. The communist regime aimed to eliminate any form of dissent or opposition. This meant that political opponents, like intellectuals, activists, and even artists, were often silenced or oppressed, and environmental activism and scientific pursuits didn't always align with the priorities of the state.
Throughout her life, Simona struggled with school and forming relationships due to her unconventional interests, but she eventually earned a spot at Jagiellonian University in Kraków, where she completed her degree in zoology and animal behavior in 1970. Her time at Jagiellonian University marked a turning point in Simona's life, as it was one of the first times she found herself surrounded by like-minded individuals. Studying during the 1960s, a decade of social change, Simona thrived in an environment fueled by student activism and environmental protests. The university became a hub for new ideas, and it was there that Simona began to focus on conservation and environmental activism, setting the stage for her lifelong commitment to protecting wildlife.
After completing her studies, Simona secured a position at the Mammal Research Institute in Białowieża Forest. This ancient forest is one of the last primeval woodlands in all of Europe, meaning it has been largely untouched by human exploitation or deforestation.
Say that word 3 times fast. Białowieża, Białowieża.
Oh, trust me. I've said this word, as have you, about 100. I hear it in my sleep.
You said it really well, though. We've got it nailed now.
We do.
It's Białowieża Forest.
Just, if
look
you think it's
spelling,
hard,
everyone,
look up the spelling.
Yeah. Well, not only was this forest amazing for her, but the job was a great fit for her, and so was this new home inside the forest. When Simona arrived, she found both solitude and a sense of belonging in a crumbling old hunter's lodge called Didinsta, which was being slowly swallowed by this encroaching forest. She described first laying eyes on the lodge and the wisent, which is a European bison that stood beside it, saying, quote, "It was the first wisent that I saw in my life. I'm not counting the ones in the zoo, and this greeting right at the entry into the forest, this monumental wisent, the whiteness, the snow, the full moon, whitest of white everywhere, and the little hut hidden in the little clearing all covered with snow, an abandoned house that no one had lived in for 2 years. In the middle of the room, there were no floors. It was generally in ruins. And I looked at this house, all silvered by the moon as it was, and I said, it's finished, it's here or nowhere else."
After some renovations, Simona plastered the walls with wallpaper and furnished her room with both practical and sentimental items from home. This included books, oil lamps, and an iron, but also things like ebony jewelry chests, glassware, and an oak bed she inherited from her family. She also hung a shotgun from the Kossak family collection right by her door for safety.
Simona became known for traveling around on a motorcycle throughout the forest to get to and from Didinsta. Those who frequented the woods, park staff, ecologists, photographers, hunters, watched in awe as Simona zipped through muddy, cold trails on her bike, which was nicknamed the Kamar bike, which translates to the mosquito.
All right, we have some things to talk about before we go on, because there's some points I want to hit here. First, what came out of your mouth is like, I see you and Simona here. Or Simona and you, I guess I should say.
That part reminded me so much of me also, actually, because I have a motorcycle who I have nicknamed Betty. And it's a dual sport motorcycle, so I don't like riding on the road. Riding on the road kind of scares me a little bit just because of other cars and stuff. So I do have my motorcycle license. My bike is street legal. However, I mostly just ride my bike to get to the woods, and then I ride around in the woods.
Yeah, zipping around here, there, and everywhere.
Zipping around.
Or slowly making your way through and having your bike fall on top of you.
Which happens more often than I would like to admit, but I can pick my bike up now, which is very impressive because my bike is over 200 pounds.
Yeah, and who needs to go to the gym when you have that?
When I get my squats in every single time I dump my bike.
Well, the other thing is we've talked a lot about Simona's upbringing and kind of this break off of, traditional routes that maybe her family were expecting her to follow in regards to art and the artistic way of life and career. And I was just thinking back to kind of like myself a little bit too, and how that has translated in my life and how I can relate to that. Not that my family had this expectation of what I was supposed to do. I didn't come from a long line of anything, everyone's done their own thing. But there was this kind of like, Simona is the first in her family to do something different. And I think a lot of people can relate to that, especially nowadays with different choices of careers and just different opportunities that never existed before. And for me, that came in the form of deciding to move away from all my friends and family and my bubble in New England right after college and pursuing a career path that not only was different from anything that anyone in my family had ever done, but also one that wasn't monetarily secure.
So your family is like, what are you
What's
doing?
happening here? Yeah, so just like a short little story. I know we have a lot of listeners from National Park After Dark. Hey, hi, hello. But for those who are new, after college, I went to school for biology and environmental science. I graduated and worked as a veterinary technician for about a year before deciding to pursue what I had wanted to do, which was wildlife conservation. And that came in the form of moving from New Hampshire to Colorado to pursue an internship in wolf conservation. And at first, my family was like, oh, God, like, why? At first, I wanted to do big cat conservation and did some working internships with big cats and tigers and lions. And my
Very
mom was
cool.
supportive, but I could tell she was like, God, why?
Like, please let this be a phase.
Right, yes. And then when she realized that it wasn't, she was still supportive, but I think everyone was kind of holding their breath of kind of like what you just said. Is this a phase? What's going on? Whatever. So I go out to Colorado. A 3-month internship turns into a permanent position. And I decided to plant roots in Colorado and really pursue this long term, which was great for me. I thought I was like, wow. Like when you were talking,
I'm thriving. I found it. This is what I love.
Yeah, like when you were talking about how Simona said, wow, I'm seeing this place for the first time and I just have this feeling like I've made it. This is it. I had a similar feeling to getting into the groove of Colorado. That's where I felt at home. And
Right.
I get this, so I'm like, make this announcement to my family. Great, I'm staying here. And they were super supportive, my kind of like close-knit nuclear family, which is just my mom, my stepdad, and my sister. And then I get this letter in the mail from my grandmother, my mom's mom.
No.
And we never had like a turbulent relationship. Everything was good. We weren't super close, but there was never anything that was like a point of contention to my knowledge until I get this
now.
I get this letter, and in it, I thought maybe it was just more of like not like a housewarming thing, but a congratulations on this new chapter type of thing. So I opened this letter, and my grandmother had basically, in not so many words, said, if this is the path you're choosing yourself, leaving your family thousands of miles away, choosing a career that has a lot of uncertainty and not a lot of financial promise, then so be it.
Oof. That's rough. I mean, that's hard, especially when you have found what you feel like is your calling, and then you have someone being like, not very obviously not approving.
Yeah, it's like you could have kept that opinion to yourself. You didn't have to pen me a letter.
Right. I mean, that's a lot of effort to go. It's not a text. Like, that's a full
You put
letter.
pen to page and sent
This was permanent.
Right.
Mailed it out, knew it was going to take days to get to me.
Yeah. And we had never really, she knew that this letter would be kind of like out of left field. Like I would take notice. It's not like we had exchanged letters frequently and this was just something that was our normal type of communication style.
Right.
I don't know. It was just, and since then, things have been fine. I love my grandmother. She's supportive of me. It's just for her, it was just such a diversion from what she thought her grandchildren, especially a female grandchild, would do. It was just like, it was hard for her to comprehend. And it made me feel a little bit of like the black sheep of the family, which is something that I have 100% embraced in years.
Great.
Following.
I would love to be. And, I think there is something to be said that's really brave about following your passions, even though your family maybe doesn't understand or approve. And I do think that there's a part of that, and probably in Simona's case too, where her family wanted her to become painters, or an artist. They were successful in that, right? So I feel like there's a part of your family that is it's not so much of what you're doing, it's the fear that it's not going to go anywhere, and they want what's best for you in life, and they want you to thrive and be happy and financially be okay. So I think that even though it comes out really wrong, and maybe that's all it was for Simona, maybe her father really just hated her idea of being in conservation. But I think there's also this, like, with any family, just we want our loved ones to thrive and be financially well off and know that they're taken care of after I'm gone, kind of thing. So I think that stems behind it. But I think that when you find your passion and your calling, you can't listen to those things. You just have to go for it. And that's what Simona did too. And that's what you did too. You stayed in your permanent position. And if you listen to National Park After Dark, you'll hear a lot more about that too, because Danielle loves to dive into wolf conservation topics and a lot of stories. Maybe it'll make its way on here at some point too.
I'll work it in.
Yeah, we'll find a way to talk about wolves on this podcast.
At the Hyundai Getaway Sales Event, get deals so right, it almost feels wrong. Now's the best time to get that Hyundai you've always wanted. Plus, every new Hyundai comes with America's Best Warranty and 3 years or 36,000 miles of limited complimentary maintenance. Don't think you can get away with all that? Think again. The Hyundai Getaway Sales Event. Visit your local Hyundai dealer today. It's a great day for a new Hyundai.
This episode is brought to you by Chevrolet. When you have 4 new tires, every drive feels fresh. Right now, buy 3 select tires and get 1 for just $1 during the Chevrolet Certified Service Fresh Start Tire Event. Visit Chevrolet.com/service offers or see dealer for full details. At participating U.S. GM dealers only, highest or equal value tire will be $1. Offer ends 5/31/2025. Not available with other offers.
Going back into the story, not long after Simona settled in, she began fostering animals to study. She was known for communicating with the animals, a trait that drew curiosity and skepticism from the locals, earning her the nickname of animal psychologist. Some even called Simona a witch.
Come on.
All because she could speak to animals. Isn't that Dr. Dolittle?
Isn't it ironic how a man...
Dr. Dolittle can do it, but Simona can't?
Yeah. We'll just leave that there and let you ruminate on that.
Mic drop.
One of Simona's most notable studies focused on the European bison, a species deeply tied to the history of the Białowieża Forest. Once abundant across the continent, the bison faced near extinction in the early 20th century due to hunting and habitat loss. While reintroduction efforts had begun before her time, Simona's research provided valuable insights into the species' needs and behaviors, which remained largely understudied. Her work contributed to ongoing conservation efforts to support their thriving population in the Białowieża Forest and other regions of Europe.
And it wasn't just bison. Simona had a real love for studying all kinds of animals. This was reflected in her home, which was far from typical. Over time, more and more animals started appearing by her house, and despite having the ability to come and go as they pleased, it seemed as if they felt safe and at home with Simona. She had a doe that would stop by the window to eat sugar, a black stork for which Simona created a nest for in a chest in her room, and a female lynx named Agatha who slept in bed with her.
Okay. I want to be
Snow White vibes.
Yeah, totally. I'm not
living all of our dream lives. We're not jealous or anything, but
no, and I'm not one for fairy tales usually, but I can get on board with this. She also had a crow who she named Kossak, though the villagers had a slightly different name for him, the terrorist crow.
Oh no.
He gained notoriety for stealing gold, attacking bicyclists, and even taking wallets and money from forest workers. Many of Simona's friends have stories of Kossak, and one of them being, quote, "Once I was walking around the reserve without a permit, and the guard saw me. He followed me to Diedzinsa and started to fill out a penalty. When he was handing me the print, the crow appeared. He took the paper in his beak, flew onto the roof of Diedzinsa with it, and tore it up with his leg on top of that roof. I had such a laughing attack that I couldn't control myself. The guard didn't know what to do, and finally, he just shrugged his shoulders at the whole thing. When I told this story to Simona, I thought she would die of laughter.
I'm just putting this whole persona of Simona together. She's on a motorcycle in the woods. She has a crow people have nicknamed a terrorist. She has animals living in her cottage that she lives in this beautiful forest. And the people who don't know her are being like, the witch in the woods. It's just goals.
I know. Yeah,
Such goals.
She's definitely living life on her own terms. That's for sure.
Yes. And Simona turned her home into this experimental laboratory. She thought of herself as a zoo psychologist. There was even a hospital and a waiting room in her home for sick animals. She was deeply invested in their well-being and was observing their behaviors along the way. For those who chose to stay, she took on the responsibility of caring for them when needed. She raised moose twins, Pepsi and Cola, like they were her own children. She let the doe give birth on her patio, took in lambs with their mother, and provided safe haven for many more.
She was proud of the world that she built, where the animals weren't just her companions, they were her family. And that feeling seemed to go both ways. She recalled a profound experience when the herd of deer she cared for barked at her, warning her from an unseen prowling lynx. Her takeaway was, quote, "I will honestly admit, this day was a breakthrough. I crossed the border that divides the human world from that of the animals. I relived this event for many days, and in fact today, when I think about it, there is a sense of warmth around my heart. It proves how one can befriend the world of wild animals." And it was in moments like these that highlighted the unique relationships Simona had forged with the wildlife she loved, studied, and strove to protect.
Again, Snow White in real life. Out of the two of us, who do you think would be more likely to be living this life and having all these animals in their house?
I'm not trying to be silent. I'm just trying to look at you with knowing eyes, because I know you know the answer to that.
I know that it is you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to see if you recognized that.
Of course I do. Mine is the motorcycle. That's all you. But yeah, this whole like surrounded by animals and wildlife and nature. I mean, of course, you're a nature and animal lover as well. That's not a question. It's just
It's
more
not
of
that
the.
I couldn't envision myself like this, but I envision it for you way more.
It's like if we had to choose, yeah.
If we had to choose.
Yeah.
We would both love it, but you would thrive here for sure.
Without question, yeah, for sure. But I do want to say, I think this is a good time to make note. We're really romanticizing this, and it is romantic in its own way, and it's obviously noteworthy, and it's true, it happened.
Right.
We know this probably isn't the best, like, she's
way to study wild animals
right.
And the whole habituation that goes with this. But
we're just telling you we know.
We're telling you we know, and that today this is not the most conventional or maybe safe way to go about trying to protect wild animals. However, the work that she did was way more impactful and meaningful. I mean, in the research, we didn't find any harm that happened because of what she was doing, which I think is important to note. But she did help protect a lot of species, which we'll get more and more into.
Yeah, we're just trying to lay the foundation here, but in doing so, recognize that we shame a lot of this behavior now with like
on national park after
right. Like we don't want to be hypocrites. We're just saying, we're just trying to tell you what happened. That's all.
Yes.
And saying it would be cool to live if it was okay. Shortly after moving into Deeds Insta, Simona met Lech Wilczek. Lech was a photographer and a nature documentarian who moved into the other half of the lodge. Simona wasn't thrilled when Lech moved in and was wary of him at first, stating she'd had bad experiences with other people or, quote, other two-legged mammals.
However, despite their rocky start, Lech's background rooted in nature gave them common ground, and Simona grew fond of him when he welcomed a baby boar, who they called Zabka, which translates to froggy, into their home. The two of them took turns sleeping with Zabka, who could have grown to be up to 400 pounds over the next 17 years that they ended up spending with him. They both shared a deep love for the forest and its creatures, and that mutual respect grew into a romantic relationship, which I don't know. If someone brought me home a baby boar, I don't know if I could resist being in a romantic relationship.
It's like, if you're asking to date, the answer is yes. This is the photo that I was referring to in the beginning of the episode. And there's a ton of photos of Simona, but the one that has been making its rounds online is of this full-grown adult boar in a bed with Simona on the floor next to it. And it was so cool during the research to learn about Lek, because through every photo of her I've ever seen, I've never once seen him. So I was like, oh, there was a guy
involved. You know that baby boar chose a favorite.
Yeah, for sure. And it wasn't just their bond with each other that grew, but also their collection of animals. They went on to include everything we've described, plus owls, deer, and even a donkey. Lek admired Simona's dedication to preserving the natural world, and Simona respected his ability to capture nature's beauty through his photography. But their relationship over the years was tumultuous. It was alleged that Lek was unfaithful and that they faced a hurdle after Lek accidentally dropped a bundle of firewood on top of Simona's lynx, Agatha, killing her. Simona, who often referred to Agatha as her daughter, was absolutely devastated and grieved for months. They may not have had the most traditional relationship, but their dynamic benefited them both, and the love that they shared remained constant. Lek's presence, his love, and even his stubbornness had a big influence on her.
So they stayed together after that incident, which I mean, that's awful. That's really traumatic to have happen in the middle of your relationship.
Yeah, especially
if
there's...
just in general.
Well, yeah, of course. And especially if there's already some other things that are going on that are making other aspects of your relationship unstable. You know, this is kind of just adding fuel to the fire. So I can see how,
Right.
I mean, that's a traumatic event. I mean, that's a tragic standalone event, let alone it just being compiled onto other pre-existing things that are going on.
Right. It's like, I'm already not happy with you, and now this happened, and I imagine it was a very, very difficult time in their relationship. But outside of her life with Lek, Simona remained dedicated to her important work and research with the forest. As an ecologist, she understood the importance of not only understanding forest ecosystems, but relaying that knowledge to others in the form of advocacy. She, unlike others at the time, saw the forest as a dynamic, living system that should be left untouched and without any human interference. She argued that forests like Białowieża were irreplaceable and shouldn't be disturbed for short-term profit.
Simona regularly contributed articles in major publications, using her voice to rally support for the cause. Beyond writing, she created her own films, capturing both the breathtaking beauty of the forest and the vulnerability of its endangered species. Her influence also extended to the radio, where she became a guest on well-known talk shows, sparking meaningful conversations and inspiring others to take action. One of the biggest battles she fought was against the logging and industrial exploitation of the forest. She clashed with loggers, politicians, and hunters who were decimating populations with little to no regulations in place, largely motivated by financial gain.
But she persevered, and her research became important in highlighting the forest's ecological value and helping to shift the cultural view of it. Others started to see it less as just a resource to be used and more as a precious natural sanctuary that needed to be protected. Simona also played a crucial role in maintaining the Białowieża's forest status as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, which stands for the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. This title means the forest is a place that has been recognized for its cultural, historical, scientific, or natural significance. These sites are considered important for humanity as a whole and are granted special protection and recognition to ensure their preservation for future generations. Some of these UNESCO World Heritage Sites that people may be a little bit more familiar with include the Great Wall of China, the Grand Canyon, Machu Picchu, and the Great Barrier Reef. And because of her contribution, that forest continues to be listed alongside them of equal importance.
While we mentioned she had gone up against the big timber industry, she also conflicted with colleagues in instances where she felt research was being conducted improperly. In 1993, she fiercely opposed methods used by researchers from the Polish Academy of Sciences to capture endangered wolves and lynx for study, and stood firmly against methods in which Simona found unethical. In order to capture the animals to fit with radio collars which collect important scientific data, they utilized steel leg hold traps, a cruel and barbaric method which not only caused harm to the animals, but was illegal in Poland.
When Simona discovered the traps, she didn't hesitate to steal them and confront the researchers at the academy. When they asked her to return their research apparatuses, she flatly refused. This outraged the scientists who charged her with theft and brought her to court. However, Simona never wavered on her stance. During the proceedings, she pointed out that there were only 12 lowland lynx remaining in the area. Previously, they were in danger of being poached, but now they were in danger of being mortally wounded by the traps. She also stated that, quote, "It's a disgrace for the world of science to have contributed to this."
I really enjoy this part of Simona's story, particularly because I have some experience with steel leg hold traps in my work with wolf conservation.
Mm-hmm.
At the conservation center that I worked at in Colorado, called the Colorado Wolf and Wildlife Center. Back when I did tours of the facility and the animals, we always started out before, everyone was always really anxious to go out and see the animals that were on the property that were rescued from various things, mostly fur farms and private ownership and photo farms and things like that. But regardless, before, we let everyone out there and got to, the quote unquote good stuff. We always started out with what was really important, especially while we had people's attention and eagerness. And that was what was going on in the world of wolf conservation at the time, and kind of gave a brief history of wolves in America, particularly, and what was going on with them and their protections, because it changes a lot, both federally and at the state level. And to illustrate some of the methods in which wolves are hunted in certain places, we had examples, either videos or physical items. And one of the physical items was a steel leg hold trap that was donated from a previous hunter. And you can read about it all you want and kind of get an idea of what they're all about. But to see it in action, to hold the weight of it, to see how the mechanism works, we would lay it out and open it and have like a large branch or a stick to trigger it so people could see, what happens to an animal's legs, snout, whatever that gets trapped in there. It's like it's an important visual to have, to really show what how violent. And then also, you can see pictures and video of animals literally gnawing their own limbs off to get out of these traps, or dying in them. And then, of course, a lot of them are used off trail and in places where people recreate with their dogs. And
right. So then
dogs are caught in them all the time, and people are like, I can't even get this off my animal. It's anyway. So to read about Simona.
Awful. Yeah. So it's awful that this research group that is supposed to be advocating for these animals is putting those out as a means to catch them.
Right. And it's putting the population in significant danger. And so anyways, just seeing how Simona really stepped up and spoke out against them, but also against her colleagues for their use. I mean, that's like double layers of respect there. But back to the legal proceedings, they didn't result in a conviction, as Simona was acting out of concern for wildlife protection. And just as a side note, she never did return the traps.
Good for her. She shouldn't. Simona was also involved in the conceptualization and testing of the UOZ-1 repeller, a device that emits high-power radio frequency, which alerts animals to the presence of oncoming trains. She recognized that collisions with trains were a significant threat to the wildlife she studied and fought to protect. The repeller was designed to emit sounds or signals that would warn the animals, giving them a chance to avoid danger before a train would pass through.
The second I read that in the research, you know who I thought of?
Who?
The Boss Baby. Not the Boss Baby,
Banff.
like the movie, but that might have been confusing. But the Boss, Baby. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with the Boss, he is a grizzly bear that resides in Banff National Park up in Canada. And we covered his story actually on National Park After Dark after we went to visit Canada and were introduced to him and his legacy there. He has made a name for himself for a lot of reasons, but essentially he's known to be like the biggest, baddest, toughest bear up in Banff National Park. He's fathered a lot of the grizzlies up there. He's fought a lot. But in relation to this and the UOZ-1 repeller is he's been struck by a train on 2 separate occasions in Banff National Park and has lived to tell the tale.
Yeah, which if you get hit by a train not once but twice, you earn the nickname the Boss.
Yeah,
for sure.
Wear that with pride.
But I'm sure he would have appreciated this device because maybe it's around now. Maybe it's up there now and he won't get hit again.
One could only hope. I haven't heard much about this, actually.
Maybe that means he's not getting hit by trains.
Yeah, he's over that time in his life.
Sergeant and Mr. Smith, you're gonna love this house.
Bunk beds in a closet?
There's no field manual for finding the right home. But when you do, USAA Homeowners Insurance can help protect it the right way. Restrictions apply.
This episode is brought to you by Loom by Atlassian. Are you feeling stuck at work? Get your team unstuck with Loom video messaging and move work forward. Use Loom to simultaneously record both your screen and yourself to share a quick update, provide feedback, train a colleague, and everything in between. Plus, add Loom AI to your meetings for instant written notes and recordings. Try Loom today at Loom.com. That's LOOM.com.
Well, back to Simona. She did continue her work at the Mammal Research Institute of the Polish Academy of Sciences, where she focused on the study and conservation of the Białowieża Forest and its wildlife. In 2000, she was awarded the Golden Cross of Merit, which is the highest civilian award in Poland. In 2003, she took on a leadership role at the Forest Research Institute's Department of Natural Forests, where she worked until her death in 2007 at the age of 63. The cause of her death was not publicly disclosed.
Lech continued to live in the lodge following Simona's death. He wrote a book titled Meeting with Simona Kossak, which reflects on her life, work, and legacy, helping others understand her contribution to environmentalism and wildlife conservation. Lech passed away in 2018, but their shared vision lives on through his writing and their ongoing conservation work.
Unfortunately, several years after Simona's death, logging was once again active in the forest. In March 2016, the Polish environment minister decided to expand logging access within the Białowieża, despite its UNESCO protections. The Polish government attempted to justify this, pinning the reason on a bark beetle infestation. However, many suspected it wasn't beetles, but profit that motivated this decision.
Both the public and scientific community strongly opposed the decision, and over 140,000 people signed a petition urging the reinstatement of protections. It wasn't until 2018 that a European Court of Justice ruled the logging illegal and also threatened to fine Poland 100,000 euros per day if the logging activity was to continue, which ultimately stopped the activity. However, not shortly thereafter, environmental groups found themselves standing up against yet another commercial logging company who once again gained access to the forest. That fight continues today, and it just goes to show that the world is always in need of more Simonas.
That statement couldn't be more true, because if you look at what Simona did, and then even the 140,000 people who signed a petition, which later resulted in it becoming banned, I mean, it just shows what people can truly do if they fight for something that they love and care about. And Simona was able to do this because she stood up to political and economic systems that were determined to exploit these lands that she loved. And yet she never wavered in her commitment, because she knew the forest was worth fighting for. And she made sure that the world knew that too. Every step of her journey was against the odds, but she did it anyway, which I love to say, because this is the theme of this podcast, Watch Her Cook. This is everything we're trying to embody here, is what Simona did with her life.
In such a unconventional way for the times. You know, I'm really proud to know that has shifted a little bit. You know, I think that a lot of us don't really blink an eye when someone says they're going to go off and do something completely different. Like our generation, especially, I think, is probably the start of that. You know, like, okay, go off, do your thing. Like, just more supportive and understanding of a different choice and a different path. And
especially for women.
Especially for women. And I do recognize, though, that that wasn't always the case. And that's really what we need to keep in mind when reflecting back on Simona's story. Because, yeah, she did so much, and there's so much to recognize and applaud her for. But it all begins with making a difficult choice of going against the grain. And that translated into standing firm and standing up and speaking out. And that just is really, you know, Simona's all about that. And we're all about that. And that's why we wanted to include her in our show.
Yeah. And I think it's important to remember, I think Simona's story is a good reminder that not everyone has to be on board with your decisions or think that what you're doing is right. But if you know in your heart that this is what you're meant to do, and this is the direction that you're meant to be in, don't let other people's opinion influence that, and just follow your heart, follow your dreams, and fight for things that you feel are important to you. And with that, I think that is all we have for today's episode. Thanks for tuning in to Watch Her Cook.
If you're looking to dive a little deeper into Simona's story, we've dropped some sources for you in the description. Let us know what incredible women's stories you'd like to hear next.
And a big shout out to Sickbird Productions, who produces our podcast and helps bring these stories to life. Don't forget to follow us on Watch Her Cook podcast, leave a review, and subscribe for more inspiring stories. Just a reminder, empowered women empower the world. Now let's go cook.
You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/kidsandfamily. Just go to Indeed.com/kidsandfamily right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.